Hello everyone and welcome back to the next lecture. In this lecture it will be another technical one. Just for your information, we will be talking about Opscripts. And Opscripts are Katana's most efficient way to write code and manipulate the scene graph and the attributes within that. So Opscripts can be very complex. For instance, Katana's Gaffer is made of lots of little Opscripts, and there are quite a few other tools which are made out of Opscripts. So an Opscript is kind of like a Python interpreter, but it is written in Lua, which is Katana's native coding language. And I don't want to really talk about too much about the Lua syntax and how it's working. I just want to show you the possibility and the options you can have with creating Opscripts. So let me just hook this up into my stream, and on default nothing really will happen. All you can do is edit that, and you can see you get your script, your Lua text. When that Opscript is run, if it's deferred, it will render. It will be deferred at the last step of the scene graph interpretation, or it's run at this location where it is in the node graph. So that's kind of the idea. And another thing to know is you have a cell statement, which is a location in the scene graph. So you can specify a distinct path. You can add several locations. You can add a collection to this. And for each location it finds, so let's say I do custom and I drag in my geo and I do /star, or actually //star, and I display the contents. For each location it finds, the contents of this script will be run. So keep in mind that having lots of locations in an Opscript can be very slow in performance if you have tons of things. So never actually do something like //star. It's not a good habit. So as an example, what I want to work on today and explain to you the power of that is how to manipulate our output paths for our output streams and AOVs. So right now, if I delete the Opscript again, and if I view from my Beauty Garage, hit edit, you can see these are my output paths, and they point to my Katana file location, to scenes, to my asset, output, AOV, and primary. So already a conflict would be if I write or render from the Beauty Garage and then I render from the studio, it will actually overwrite the previous outputs because they point to the same location on disk. So this is already problematic, and because the output path is defined in our macro AOV define, which is actually now completed. So if you want to grab that completed one, it is in the resources file for the previous lecture. But anyways, the paths are defined and the output down here. And at this point in time, I actually do not have the knowledge of in what path it lives and where I want it to write to. So now comes Opscripts in place. So at the bottom here, I can actually create an Opscript somewhere in this area, which will help me to manipulate this path. So instead of having just AOV, I can actually have the render name output in between these things. So instead of going to output /AOV, what I can do now is go to output / our render path output name /AOV. So that is kind of the idea I want to go for, and I want to show you how to create that within an Opscript. So let's just create a clean Opscript and just drop this in right here. And before we start coding, we obviously need a location. I was just talking about what we put in here. So obviously we need to know where that path is written to in our attributes and at which location, obviously. So let's check if it's in root world and check the attributes of that location. And this location has render settings and it has outputs. If I open up the outputs, you can see all our paths to our AOV. So let's check the primary and let's go to location settings, and we can see that this is actually the output path. But you can see that it is not local. The value is not localized. So if I click this and show attribute history, you can see actually where it's being created. It's coming from the output primary, our node, but we want to see where it's inherited from, and it's actually inheriting from /root. So if I go to my location to root instead, you can see now that all these values are localized and I can actually change them from here. So this is the clue from where we need to run the op script. So we want to just drag in a path and drag in the root path as our location. So this will only run on the root one time, which is perfect. So heading back over here, let's just see how it works. So if I type in print, this is now Lua syntax, so bear with me, it's a bit different than Python. Print, let's not do that, my path, hit Control and Enter, and now we need to check our shell again, and right now there's nothing in it, so we need to click away and view and unview this node, and let's check the shell again, and now you can see we get the my path printed in our shell, which is our terminal where we launch Katana from. So we can definitely see it's called. So the first thing would be to, how do we know in which stream we are in right now? So what I can do, I can just create, as we did on the macro, I can go to the wrench, go to edit user parameters, and under the user tab, I can just create a string parameter and just rename this to maybe pass, or maybe pass name, or just leave it at pass actually. And just finish editing user parameters. So now we have a parameter called pass, and let's just define this as, for now, just call it my underscore output underscore location. This would be the folder which is being created at that with this name kind of thing. So how can we use this value within our script? So the syntax for this is just define it as a variable. You can be sure to save it as a local one so it's not affected by other op scripts. So local pass, and then you type in interface.get op arc. These are just the functions which ship with Katana. So that's the API they created. User.pass, which is our parameter. And then we just want to type in get that value like so. And if I print pass now, let's see what we get. If I just run this, Control Enter, and click in our node graph and go to the shell, right now it's still empty, so let's just click here. Sometimes you need to view and unview it just to make sure it's written. And it still does not write it, so maybe something went wrong here. Let's just try this again. Let's just debug this quickly and see where that path is. Alright, it was just an update issue. So my output location is now printed. If I change it to maybe just my output, confirm this, and just make sure we update the script and check the output. We can see now my output is printed. So this definitely works, and we get our inputs from the pass. So the next thing would be to get the current output, right? We want to get this this group attribute. So if I now type in here, just to store outputs in a variable, local outputs is equal to interface.getAdder, and then we just want to go to this attribute, and you can see now this group lives under render settings and then outputs. If you're not sure, you can actually drag in this parameter in the Python shell by middle mouse click and drag, and you can see that render settings underscore, which is replaced by a dot, is the parameter name. So if I type in get adder render settings dot outputs like that, we are getting actually that parameter, and you can see now we don't get any errors. Be sure to be selected on root, And let's just see if I print this, what we get. Print output like that. And we can see now we get all this content, and we can see we get all the, it's a group attribute, and we get all the outputs from that, including our render location. So the next thing now to do is just create a simple loop to loop over all these keys, right? So what we want to do is for I is equal to 0, which means we start at index 0. For outputs, we get the number of children, get number of children, which gives us a number, and we always want to have the exact number, so we just do -1, and then we want to start at index 1 and do. So that's the syntax for a loop. And if I hit print end and I just print I for now, let's just see what we get now. We get a syntax error, so output is not defined because we stored it under output. Click again. Now let's see if we get another syntax error. This should be fine now. Let's see if it works. And we get no error, so let's just go to the terminal. And now we can see these numbers are being printed 1, 2, 3, 4, up until 8. It starts at 0 and goes up till 8, so it should display all the parameters. So what we can do now is just print maybe the name or something. So what we can do then is just store this, maybe output name, local again, output name is equal to output, which is our main variable, and we get the child name with the index I, with the value I, and I just print the output name again like that. Let's see what we get now. We get all our paths. So this is exactly what we want to do. So the next thing would be is from this point on location, if we are on the root, we want to go to primary now, and we want to go to location settings and render locations. So let's grab that render location. So we store it, we'll create a new variable called render location like that, and it's equal to outputs output dot get child by name, and this is now starting with our output name dot to do string concatenation string, and then we could do location settings dot render location like this, and then we want to get its value like that, and it's stored in this little variable here, so it's stored into render location. And now we want to create we want to update the string. Let's first just print this just that you know what we're working with, and go to the terminal, and you can see now we should be getting those paths. We definitely get the 1, we get this path, we get all these paths. So this is exactly what we want. I think let's just render location. Did that actually do what it's supposed to? Let's just save again and check. Maybe a new line. Tab it in, click down here, and now you can actually see we get all these outputs. So that's exactly what we want. And now we want to replace that output slash AUV with our folder which we have down there. So let's just do a new variable called updated location, and then we'd want to do some string interpolation. So there's you can use a function called PyString, which actually calls Python's internal path replace or string replacement functions. So we want to replace a string, and that string is the render location, which is that path to the location on disk. We want to search for outputs slash AUV, and then we want to replace it with outputs again slash and then we do a dot 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 to append our pass, which is our pass name, and we type dot 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 again, and we continue with our / and we append the AOV again. And this would kind of be now the path we want to work with. So if I print now the updated location, and let's see what we get now. We can now see right now that didn't update. I think it did not. Let's just save this again. So sometimes you can see it's a bit buggy to update. Let's just do a new line here. Click down there. Let's see if we get an updated one here. So my problem was actually that outputs does not exist. The path is actually output and not outputs. So just be sure to check it now. And let's see if it works now. Yeah, now you can see that the string is being replaced, and we now have gear output / my output / AOV. So if I change my output now to, let's say, beauty garage, let's just see what we get now. We get now the path as output / beauty garage. So this is now very great because the AOVs will be written to the correct folders. And all we gotta do now is right now our output location hasn't changed. So we need to update our parameter on our attributes. So all we gotta do is call interface.setAdder and go to that location again, which is render settings.outputs. And we want to concatenate the new render location. So what we want to do is we want to go to the correct path, or pass actually. So we want to make sure that we go to output name here. Output name dot dot dot, do a string quote, and go continue with location settings dot render location like that. And then we want to create or define the value which we want to set. And it will be a string attribute. And we want to pass in the updated location like that. And let's see if I continue or click to update. You can see the path at the bottom here changed. And now our output is / beauty garage AOV.primary. Right now, all this Opscript stuff and string replacement is kind of forced to be for Windows, which is problematic because if you work on a Mac or on Linux, these / will not work. So actually a better way to do this is using the Python path module, and I'll just make a bit of room here to actually have my shell at the bottom here to just see the outputs a bit faster and more easy. So what I want to do, instead of having this updated location and forcing it to be something like that, I just want to do it a bit cleaner, and I'll just want to first comment this out. I think it's actually a hash. I'm not exactly sure. Is it that? Oh, it's 2 dashes actually to comment. So commenting this out. And I also want to comment out our replacement string function. So all we have now is the render location. And then if I print the render location right now, like that, and I click here outside, you can see that is being printed in the bottom. So that does work. So what I want to do now is I want to use Python's path module to separate the file name, so the EXR, from the main path. So for that I create a new variable called base, and that is equal to pystring.os.path.basename, and the base name will want to get a path which is render location. And if I print base now, let's see what we get. We actually get our proper file name, which is in this case SSS indirect 10 EXR. So that's our base. So this is actually our file name, or let's call it just the base. And I want to create another local variable, and this one is dir name like that, and it's pi string as well, .os.path.dir name instead, and that is render location. So let's just print base. Let's print dir name comma base, see what we get. So now we get everything up to the last folder, and then we get the base name. So what we want to do now is go up one directory from that, and all we got to do now is just call it, maybe create one more variable, call this output dir is equal to pi string os path. We call dir name again, and this time we pass in our previous dir name function, and let's just print that instead. So go output dir like that and print what we get. So what we have now, you can see, is we still get the full path, but this time we go up till output. So this is now actually a lot safer than to use our string interpolation, which we did here. So all we got to do now is create a combined string with all these values together. So how it works, actually very straightforward. We just create the function again, local.updated location is equal to pi string dot os dot path dot join. And now if I just pass in the dir name, which is everything up till output, type in create a comma and a new string, and let's call this one my pass, and we do comma again, and we type maybe AOV for that folder we had before, and then we do type in the base, and maybe let's just print this now. So print updated location and see what we get now. We get now a string which points to output AOV my pass AOV. So it's not yet perfect, so we need to do a bit more work on this. So we actually want not dir name here, we want actually output directory, output dir, print again, and now we can see we have output my pass and then AOV. And all we got to do now is just call norm path, which will just normalize the whole string so we don't have backwards and forward slashes. So if I now encapsulate all of that into one last pi string call to os path norm path, and everything goes in here, and I print that, now you can see that the bottom path is updated and everything is now using backslashes. So this is now our updated path. We just need to fill in this my pass variable with the output with the pass variable, which we define up top there. So just use pass instead, print one last time, and now you can see we get Beauty Garage as our output name, and all we got to do now is uncomment the set call, and now everything should be correct, hopefully. Let's just check our output path. It has now backslashes, and the output is Beauty Garage. So if I just type in maybe Beauty Sun, you can see now this path is updated to Beauty Sun. So this is now a lot safer in terms of working on different systems like Linux or Mac or Windows. So it's a bit more lines, but it's definitely more robust, and it should not cause you any more issues. So if I save this now and maybe just rename, or go to the node graph and maybe rename this to maybe output path or just output prep or something like that. And now ideally what we can do is to pipe in somehow to get the correct output path we have down here. And the easiest way to do this is just to make the node name properly. So we can just do output prep underscore, maybe we just call it beauty underscore garage like that. And now we can be sure that we can just read that value and our node will work accordingly. So if I go to the Opscript and edit the pass variable and do an expression, and I just call get node dot, I hope I do it right, so get node, let's see if this works actually. Let's just try self.get node, which is the current node, get name, gives us the name, and I want to split by underscore, and I just want to split one time, so I do comma 1, and I hit enter, and now we get a list or an array, and I just want to get the last item of the array, so square brackets -1, and now we get the path is beauty garage. So whenever I have this node, my output path will be this. So I can just copy this guy, copy, paste, rename this to studio instead of garage, like that. Copy and paste this one more time, and this one will be sun, like that. So now we have these Opscripts which should all work correctly, and if I view from down here from the beauty sun, I hit edit. Let's check our output paths, and you can see that our folder is beauty sun /AOV diffuse direct. And if I view from the studio, we should be able to see an updated path as well, which points to beauty studio, and the same obviously for the garage. And obviously if you want to prefix these outputs to your AOVs directly, you can do so by just manipulating this this join string here and add a few more lines of code, and then you can customize this to your needs. So this is not the most beautiful nodes right here, so we can actually have shorter names, and maybe just instead of output prep, just call it prep maybe, like that. So it's a bit shorter. You can also group all this into a prep group and have it all happening within this node. But I think this should work, and if you want more space, you can just fairly easily just extend your little backdrop there and just give yourself some room to play with. Move these guys over like that or whatever, and now you can create a dot right down here, connect this up, and this one connects up here. So now we have a cleaner layout, we have more room to play with, and the longer node names will not be a problem. So this is just one way of using Opscripts, and Opscripts can be very crazy. You can do lots of things with this. In the help file, you have actually example projects. If I click that, you can actually load quite a few things how to work with Opscripts. And there is a scripting section, Opscript tutorials, and I would recommend you to just have a look at this and what you can actually do using Opscripts. It's very interesting. You can do lots of things. You just choose the one you want, and on the top right, open project, and you just can browse. It's all documented very well, and obviously you can also check out these other things in the example projects. So thank you guys for watching this lecture about Opscripts, and I hope this got you a bit into scripting and helped you how to customize your output names. So thank you guys, and I will see you in the next one.